Welcome to your first flipped classroom lecture. Just as a reminder, please make sure you take notes during this video so that you're prepared for tomorrow's class activities. Also make sure that you make note of any questions you may have throughout the video, and finally, don't rush through the video. You're working at your own pace, so if you need to stop the video or rewind it, do so. If you need to watch a video more than once, you can also do that. Before we officially begin, let's take a look at what you will have learned by the end of today's video. First, you're going to know what fascism is. You will also know who Mussolini and Hitler are and how they each came into power and created fascist governments within their own respective countries. Finally, you will learn about FDR handling the rising threat in Europe by examining a piece of his foreign policy. Here are the pictures of the two fascist leaders we are talking about in today's lesson. Hitler from Germany is on your left, and Mussolini from Italy is on your right. Let's begin with the definition of fascism. What is fascism? Fascism places the importance of the nation above the value of the individual. This political philosophy worked out well for Hitler and Mussolini because they wanted to rebuild Germany and Italy. So how does communism differ from fascism? Communism, which we talked about during the Russian Revolution, calls for all of society to jointly own the nation's means of productions, while fascism allows for private businesses to still exist. Communists believe that conflicts between workers and owners wouldn't exist because they are all owners, while on the other hand, the government would resolve the conflict within a fascist government. Nevertheless, under both systems, individual rights and freedoms are lost, and everyone works for the benefit of society and the nation. So let's take a look at how Mussolini takes control of Italy. Mussolini had fought in World War I, and like many other Italians, he felt that Italy had been shortchanged in the peace agreement at the end of the war. In 1919, he and other dissatisfied Italian war vets organized a fascist party. He would use thugs called black shirts, because that's what they would wear, to terrorize and control those who opposed him. In 1922, he had gained so much power that when he threatened to march on Rome, the king panicked and actually appointed him prime minister. Mussolini acted quickly to deal with the political and economic problems that had plagued Italy since World War I. He suspended all elections, outlawed all political parties, banned government criticism, and controlled the press. He soon established a dictatorship. His slogan, "The country is nothing without conquest," was put into action in October of 1935 when Mussolini invaded Ethiopia. The Ethiopians fought hard, but by March of 1936, Ethiopia was in Italian hands. While Mussolini was gaining control of Ethiopia, an unhappy Austrian painter was rising to power in Germany. Like Mussolini, Hitler had fought during World War I. He too was enraged by the outcome of the war and the terms of the peace settlement. In 1919, Hitler joined a small political party which soon took the name of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Nazi Party. Hitler was a powerful public speaker, and in 1923 he tried to take over the German government. However, authorities crushed the uprising and Hitler was sentenced to prison for 5 years. He ends up serving 9 months. While he is in prison, Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, meaning my struggle. In it, he outlines the Nazi philosophy, his views on Germany's problems, and his plan for the nation. Saddled with huge debts because of World War I, Germany suffered from high unemployment and massive inflation during the 1920s. In the early 1930s, the effects of the Great Depression further ravaged the German people. Hitler and the Nazis promised to stabilize the country, rebuild the economy, and restore the empire that had been lost. Because of such promises, Hitler gradually won a large following, and by January of 1933, the Nazi Party was the largest in the German parliament, and Hitler had become head of state. Hitler soon silenced the opposition and suspended civil liberties and even convinced the German parliament to give him dictator powers. He created a totalitarian state, meaning that the Nazis controlled every aspect of German society. He started to build up the German military and began his attack on Jews by taking away their German citizenship and forbidding them from certain locations and jobs. The United States watched cautiously as dictators in Europe sought to solve their nation's problems by extending their power. Many believed that the US had enough problems at home, and they supported a policy of isolationism. believing that American interests would be best served by staying out of other nations' problems. By the mid-1930s, Congress had responded to the isolationism sentiment by passing a series of neutrality laws. These laws declared that the U.S. would withhold weapons and loans from all nations at war. Further, they required that non-military goods sold to nations at war be paid in cash and transported by the purchaser. This policy became known as cash and carry. Finally, since European countries seemed unstable, FDR decided to focus more on the countries in Latin America through his good neighbor policy, focusing on building stronger relationships with countries near the U.S. rather than overseas. So after watching the video, you should be able to answer the following 5 questions. What is fascism? How does fascism differ from communism? How did Mussolini and Hitler both rise to power? And how did Mussolini and Hitler control Italy and Germany? And finally, what is a depression diplomacy established by FDR? So this concludes our first lesson video on World War II. Remember to write down any questions you may have, and I will see you all in class tomorrow.